And there we're going live.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Bored as Hell podcast. I'm Adam McDonald with Big Shiny Robot.
And I am Andy Wilson, aka Citizen Bot, also with Big Shiny Robot.
And we have a lot of movies to talk about this week. We've got 4 big releases, some good, some bad, some, well, we'll get there. But I think let's start with one that I think we both generally enjoyed. Possibly you might like it a bit more than I did, because I have some issues with it. But let's talk about the kind of suspense thriller, The Gift.
The Gift is a suspense thriller written, directed, and starring Joel Edgerton, who you may know from The Killing, or The Great Gatsby, or the remake of The Thing. He was also the young Owen Lars in the Star Wars prequels, but don't hold that against him.
Well, he was in it for 2 seconds, so...
Yeah, he was in it for 2 seconds. And
he kind of grimaced, and then that was it.
Yep. Anyway, so he has written and directed this movie, starring Jason Bateman, and he and his wife, played by Allison Hall, have just moved into a new home in LA, which happens to be where he grew up, or close to where he grew up. And excuse me, not did I say Allison Hall? Rebecca Hall. Anyway, they've moved into this home, and it's this beautiful home with tons of windows. And one of the things that Edgerton gets really right in this movie is he turns that home into almost a character in and of itself. He really nails this creepy vibe of what it's like dealing with someone who's a little bit stalkery in a house with a lot of windows. So that's good marks for that. But essentially what happens is they meet Edgerton randomly at the mall, and he's like, oh, hey, we went to high school together. And then creepiness ensues. He starts leaving gifts at their house. He starts coming over unannounced, and he's trying to kind of squeeze his way into their life. And there seems to be some sort of history between him and Jason Bateman's character. It's not really revealed exactly what, and that's part of the mystery of what we find out as we go through here. It also seems like Jason Bateman may not be that nice of a guy contrary to first glance, in that he does incredibly well and nails that kind of creepy, douchey vibe that people who saw him in Juno might remember, or some of the creepier bits from Arrested Development, like where he's, where as the dad he's living with George Michael in his dorm room. Anyway, so I like this movie a decent amount. Adam, what did you think about it?
So I will give props to the acting. I think everyone involved does a really great job. And, I've, to be completely honest, I haven't watched all of Arrested Development, so I'm not quite as familiar with Jason Bateman's role in that. But in the movies he's been in, he's always kind of like the aw shucks, or the kind of befuddled, every man who, gets in situations that he's entirely uncomfortable with. So it was really refreshing to see him in a role that, like you said, like he very much is not a nice person. He's, not to give the story away because that's half the fun, is kind of figuring out what happens. But there are certain scenes where he's almost scary in the way he's acting, and the way he treats Gordo and everything else. So from the get-go that something's wrong with him, and that he might be getting his just desserts by having this creepy guy kind of come after him. And speaking of the creepy guy, Joel Edgerton is Gordo, and I'll get to it in a minute, the problem I have with this film, but yeah, he's creepy, he's kind of, not only kind of stalkerish, I guess, but he just kind of comes across as maybe a nice guy who is trying a bit too hard. I think we've all had those friends who, they're over anxious, they're over eager to please, and it comes off as kind of unnerving because it's not what those of us who quote-unquote claim to be normal expecting people, because there's always looking over your shoulder to see, okay, what's this person, what are they really after, what's their real agenda. And in this case, he does have an agenda, but one of the letters he writes is, "Hey, let's let bygones be bygones." So he's giving Jason Bateman's character a chance to, get over the past. And as someone who, growing up, was bullied a lot and had some situations, I can kind of identify with that. And now as an adult, we've all gotten over things and gone on with life. But if someone who had been a bully to me when I was younger, and I tried to give them an olive branch and they denied it, I probably wouldn't go to the steps that he does, or maybe does. It's never really quite explained. But I can see where that bitterness would definitely come about. So I think the acting is great. The house is creepy. I guess one problem with this is don't watch any of the trailers. I mean, we said that last week about Vacation. Not because the trailers in this one ruin the movie, but because it sets it up to almost be like a home invasion horror movie that it's not. It's definitely suspenseful and has some scary moments, some jump scares, which they kind of set up some lazy jump scares, which I didn't like. But it's definitely creepy, has its moments, but there are some problems with it.
Yeah, I felt it was a really, really slow burn up to what I felt was a very interesting ending, but because it was a little bit ambiguous, and when you see this film, you'll see what I mean about the ambiguity of it. Adam, you and I were talking about this, and it's like, well, did he or didn't he sort of thing. And in that, there's something interesting, but I feel like it's a little bit of a failure, because if it went one way, then it completely changes how you interpret the character of Gordo. And
exactly.
So it felt unsatisfying to me that there was this big build-up, and wow, there was something really cool there at the end, but I wish that it had just been handled more deftly. And throughout the screenplay, there were just little bits that it's like there's a great kernel there of something, and it just didn't develop into something awesome. So I liked this movie, but yeah, it was just kind of right up the middle for me. I ended up at 5 out of 10.
And see, example, what you said that fully mirrors what I'm thinking was Gordo's a very sympathetic bad guy in the sense that as an audience you can identify with his plight. But the twist they took at the end, whether or not it actually happened, that's kind of up to Jason Bateman's character and also us as the audience to figure out, really twisted and distorted his character and made it so you couldn't root for him. Like, even though, he was doing weird things, you understood where he was coming from and you felt sorry for him. But if the clues he left to what may have happened, if that actually did happen, then he immediately goes from being this guy who's you're sympathetic to someone who is a complete twisted person who I can't even, it angered me. Especially because he involved, Robin, who was Rebecca Hall, Jason Bateman's wife, in this, and she was the most innocent of all. She was the one who was trying to reach out and be considerate to him and be nice to him. So for that, I'm right with you. Actually, a 5 out of 10. I think there's a lot of good things here. I would have liked if Joel Edgerton would have maybe taken a step back from his screenplay, maybe let someone look at it and either one, remove the ambiguity, or two, change how they treated Gordo's character.
Yeah. So I think it's always hard when you have one person that this is their passion project, and it's writer, director, and starring. Unless you really have a handle on exactly what you're doing, it can get away from you really easily because we all have blind spots. That being said, good job, and I hope that Joel Edgerton will continue to come back with other things because this shows promise.
Yeah. So again, overall, okay movie, but maybe wait for Dollar Theater or Redbox. So
yep.
Kind of in the same vein is our next one, which is Rikki and the Flash. It's directed by Jonathan Demme, who is most well known for doing Silence of the Lambs back in the 90s, as well as Philadelphia, the Tom Hanks HIV movie. Rikki and the Flash stars Meryl Streep as an aging wannabe rocker. She divorced her husband, who's played by Kevin Kline, and kind of left her family, went to California, and tried to strike it big by being a rock star. Didn't work out exactly how she hoped. She's working at a Whole Foods knockoff, which has some really funny scenes with her and her manager trying to coach her to be happy and successful at being I think it was called Total Foods employee. And her rock star ambitions have kind of settled on her band, The Flash, which is a cover band that performs at the local bar and plays, Bruce Springsteen and, all the classic, Billy Joel kind of songs. Well, she gets a call from her ex-husband, Pete, saying that her daughter, Julie, who's played by Mamie Gummer, who actually is Meryl Streep's daughter in real life, just found out that her husband was cheating on her, and she's moved back home and is in a deep depression, won't change clothes, won't come out of her room. Will you please come back and see if you can make a difference? So Rikki reluctantly agrees to go there, and of course, her ex-husband's now very, very successful. They live in a huge mansion, and the exact opposite of where she's living in her little one-bedroom apartment in LA. And of course, when she gets there, her daughter wants something to do with her because she left when she was a kid and hasn't been part of her life, and blah, blah, blah. But of course, this being kind of a romantic story and comedy, I guess you'd say, Rikki ends up being the only one who can bring her daughter out of her funk, gets her out of the house, gets her hair done, gets a manicure makeover thing going, and eventually patches things up to the point where her daughter's back into life. During this time, she also meets with her kids, one of them who's getting married soon, and of course she wasn't invited to the wedding because, well, mom hasn't been there forever. And then her one son, who she didn't know was gay, and that was predictable as hell. And it's all kind of a cool story until about 2/3 of the way through. Her ex-husband's new wife shows up and says, "Cool, well, you've done a lot of good here, so bye." And she just goes home. And at that point, it kind of takes a weird turn to where she's back home, and then it just really lost focus. And then eventually she gets invited to the wedding and plays a song for her son, and yada, yada, yada. I guess my biggest problem here is that the movie doesn't know what it wants to do. I mean, Meryl Streep is always great, no matter what she's in. She could read the phone book, and she'd be amazing. But it's kind of an interesting story, and then it goes off the rails, and then just kind of putters around, and then the credits roll. So it's not a bad movie by any means. It's just, it doesn't know where it's going, but it does have a lot of fun getting there. I would say, though, the one biggest thing is, Meryl Streep, I love you, honey. You can sing. You've done it Into the Woods. You've done it in many movies. But that doesn't mean that every single movie you're in, you got to start singing, because this movie really turns into Meryl Streep karaoke, and there's a good 5 or 6 songs, which makes up 20-25 minutes of the movie, of her singing cover songs.
So she has Ed Helms disease. Ed Helms is contractually obligated to sing in every single movie he's in for inexplicable reasons.
Yeah, and again, she's a great singer. I mean, Mamma Mia, like I mentioned before with Into the Woods, she can do it. She's got the chops. Doesn't mean you have to do it. So it's fluff. It's lighthearted. It's it's a feel-good movie. It's just nothing that great. It's kind of a weird time of year for it to come out too. It's not really summer fare. I would have expected to see this maybe more in October time. But 6 out of 10. Not bad, just kind of off.
I'd have expected more out of Jonathan Demme and Meryl Streep, but I think that Meryl is saving her Oscar goodness for Suffragette coming out in December.
Yeah, that's the big one they're pushing for her. So
yeah, so there we go, and maybe she'll sing in that. I don't know. We'll see.
Yes.
But next I got to see Shaun the Sheep,
and I'm so jealous of you.
Oh, this was a great movie, put out by Aardman Animation Studios, who you may remember. Well, first of all, the Shaun the Sheep is a TV show. You can watch it on Netflix and Hulu with the kids. It's a lot of fun. They also did the Wallace and Gromit shorts and Chicken Run, among other things. Yeah,
and the TV show, actually, Brooke Heim, who was our guest a couple weeks ago, she can watch this nonstop with her daughter, and they both love it. So if you're a parent, and I'm sure you can agree with this, trying to find something your kids will like that you won't hate, and you're tired of Frozen, Shaun the Sheep is the way to go.
Shaun the Sheep is absolutely great, and this movie is completely worthy of everything else that they've done. I was actually blown away by how much I could care about these animals and their owner without a lick of dialogue. There are no words in this entire film, and so it's just done like a great silent movie pantomime with a lot of visual gags that kids, from the age of 2 up to 82 are going to know and love. I just absolutely love this movie. We're going to talk about Fantastic Four in a minute. Every single thing that Fantastic Four did wrong, Shaun the Sheep did right. They knew the background of their characters. They gave us a great villain. They developed motivations for their characters, and it was just madcap, nonstop action sequences, gags, humor, and a great sense of family and adventure in all of this. Not that you need to know the plot here, but it's fairly simple. Shaun and the rest of the sheep live on a farm, and one day Shaun decides that what we should really do is get the farmer out of here, and we can all take a day off. So hijinks ensue, and the farmer ends up in the big city with memory loss, and he suddenly becomes the next big thing of a hot hairstylist doing the same thing he's always done, like shearing the sheep, and he's doing that. So they have to go into the big city to rescue him and bring things back to normal on the farm. The plot doesn't matter. Just go in and watch and let the awesomeness in just wash over you. This might be heresy, but I might have liked this more than Inside Out.
Ooh.
It's really, really, really close. I'm giving this 9 out of 10. It's just absolutely gorgeous and a lot of fun. Although, in my defense, I'm going to say I might take this down a notch because I'm watching Shaun the Sheep after watching Fantastic Four and Pixels, whereas I saw Inside Out in the midst of Jurassic World and Mad Max Fury Road and Tomorrowland. So it might be some. It's just so much better by comparison, but it's just absolutely wonderful, and I can't recommend it enough. That's the movie you should be going to see.
Awesome. Well, I will definitely. That's on my list to check out. It just sometimes you have to work through screenings, which is really annoying, and we'll actually discuss that later. But unfortunately, a movie screening I didn't have to work through. Okay, we're going to talk about Fantastic Four. And
brace yourselves.
Brace yourself. Fantastic Four is coming. We're going to try to be as objective as possible, because if you read my review on Big Shiny Robot, you already know the score I gave it, which I've only done twice now. In 4 years of reviewing movies, I've only had 2 zeros. So, spoiler, this one gets a 0. So let's talk about the plot, or what little there is. So, Fantastic Four is Josh Trank's follow-up to Chronicle, which Chronicle was amazing. I absolutely love that movie. I'm not a fan of found footage films, but that one resonated with me. It was a lot of fun. It was well done. And so when I heard that he was taking over Fantastic Four, I was ecstatic because
me too.
I was like, oh my God, Josh Trank is amazing. I'm so excited to see what he can do. And then throughout the production schedule and post and everything else, little bits of hints and rumors of war, we'll say, kind of came out that he was acting weird on set. He may or may not have been high on set. Simon Kinberg had to kind of step in to finish the movie, and we'll never really know what happened. And even the other day, Josh Trank tweeted that, it was all the studio's fault. They stepped in and then quickly deleted his tweet. So
what an ass. Jeez.
Yeah, and so this film has been plagued with problems from pretty much the moment he stepped into the role. But Fantastic Four starts out with Reed Richards, who's played by Miles Teller, who was excellent in Whiplash and nothing else. And his best friend, Ben Grimm, who is played by Jamie Bell, who has always been excellent. He started out in Billy Elliot and was excellent in Snowpiercer. They've been best friends since the 5th grade, and Reed Richards has been set on building this teleportation device. And he kind of gets it right and finally perfects it and gets where they teleport to come back when he's a senior in high school and showing it off at a science fair. Teachers, of course, don't care. They write him off. Well, anyways, enter Franklin Storm, played by Reg E. Caffey, doing his very best Morgan Freeman impersonation, who says, oh my God, we've been working on this too. We're so happy you actually got this to work. Come study and work with us at the Baxter Foundation. We have real high-tech stuff there that will make this a reality. So he goes there, and as soon joined by his adopted daughter, Sue Storm, played by Kate Mara, who we all know from House of Cards, and also his son, Johnny Storm, who Michael B. Jordan, who was in Chronicle. And they also are joined by the reclusive, antisocial Victor Von Doom, played by Toby Kebbell, who originally started this project and then was let go because he couldn't get along with anyone. But he gets brought back in, and they eventually build this transportation machine that can take them to this alternate dimension and then hopefully come back. Well, the government gets involved, and they're like, oh, well, no, we can't let you go there because you're just kids, and we need to send NASA or, men and adults, whatever. So, yeah. Of course, the next thing they do, they all have to get drunk because what else are you going to do? And so Reed, Johnny, and Victor decide, hey, screw it, we're going to go there. So they call up, Ben. Hey, come here. We'll sneak into the super high-tech place, and we'll go down the room from the dorms next to the Coke machines to this transportation device, and we're all going to strap in and go to this other dimension. So they go there, and stupid things happen. Victor is presumed dead, and they all come back, and they left Sue Storm behind, even though she was an original member. And this explosion of energy happens, and they all get imbued with powers. Ben Grimm becomes this rock monster called the Thing. Reed Richards gets stretchy powers. Johnny Storm becomes the Human Torch. And Kate Mara becomes the Invisible Woman who makes visible shields. Long story short, Reed escapes and then eventually gets caught, comes back, and he feels guilty because his best friend Ben is turned into this rock monster and will promise to work with the Baxter Foundation to reopen the portal to hopefully find a cure. And of course, that all goes wrong because Victor Von Doom is now some crazy, weird energy monster who wants to destroy the world because reasons. And the credits roll. So I know it's kind of a long summation of what happens, but that's the movie. What you just heard, you don't have to go see the movie now. That is literally all 100 minutes of that film shrunk down into a 3 to 5 minute little blurb. So
please don't go see this movie. We told you everything about it.
And actually, we had my roommate Jeremiah. His friends came over and we were talking about it. And one guy was like, "I kind of want to go see it just because I can't believe it's that bad." I'm like, "If you do what we recommended with Pixels. Go buy a ticket to a good movie like Shaun the Sheep, and then sneak in. No one will know, and you can go and this movie is just bad." Andy, we're switched this time because last week or the week before I was saying, Pixels was okay, and you're like, no. So we've kind of switched gears this time. So what do you think?
And actually, I'm a lot more up on this movie than you are, though not as up on it as Brian Young was. And Brian, I love you to death, but your review was you're just way out of place. Numerically, I'm actually closer to Brian than I am to you, but here's my thing, is I was just so bored by this movie, I couldn't find the energy in myself to actively hate it. It didn't make any sense. This is the characters were somewhat resembling but legally distinct from the Fantastic Four. I literally heard people defending this, saying, well, it's not a superhero movie. Oh no, it's not. It's not a superhero. It's the Fantastic Four, the first family of superheroes in the Marvel Universe. They're known as the first family. And okay, well, it's not a superhero movie.
And actually, according to Jeremiah, it was the very first Marvel comic, actually, that Marvel started.
Yeah, and they're, it's a family picture. No, because actually the only people who are family in this are Sue and Johnny, and there's not that much interplay between the two of them. There's no Reed-Sue love story. There's nothing that really makes me feel like this is a cohesive family, so no. Oh, well, it's a science fiction exploration movie. Yeah, for the 5 minutes that they were talking about science in this movie, maybe it was. And that's where this movie was interesting, but then they just went and started looking at a computer screen, and that does not make for compelling cinema at all.
No.
So it's there were elements of what could have been good in a movie, but this was not a Fantastic Four movie. This was somewhat resembling a Fantastic Four movie, but just wasn't. And Fox, you really have two options. Give it back to Marvel, or do a deal like Sony did. Just okay. Here's a third option. Call me. I've got a great idea. I've got a really good idea for how you can actually do this right. But other than that, no. Just it was really infuriating because I love these actors, I love these characters, and I was so bored. And I think the reviews coming in just show this absolutely. Really quickly, it's currently sitting at 9% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, it dropped since I last saw it.
Yeah, so that is the same level as Catwoman and Elektra, which is about where I think it deserves to be. So let's go through. Here's 10 movies that have better ratings on Rotten Tomatoes, and see what you think of them. All the Twilight movies, better or worse?
Better.
Yes, I would agree. Better. Green Lantern, better or worse?
Oh, that's a tough one. I would say slightly better, just because Ryan Reynolds actually makes the good Hal Jordan.
Yeah, better, because there was still some cool space stuff in there. Jupiter Ascending, I will say worse. Jupiter Ascending was worse.
I'll say no, because I can appreciate what the Wachowskis were trying to do with Jupiter Ascending, even though I didn't like it. There was still that they created a world that I actually liked a lot. I wanted to see what happened in that world, not so much what happened with Guyliner and Princess Amidala.
Interesting, very interesting. Pixels.
We all know my thoughts on Pixels, and I've gone on record as saying I would rather have watched Pixels again than see Fantastic Four, and I have a reason for that. I went into Pixels knowing what I was getting into, knowing it's a Happy Madison, Adam Sandler movie, and expecting that it probably wasn't going to be really good, but I was hoping that it could at least be decent. But I had that expectation almost going in. I love Josh Trank. I love Chronicle. I was excited to see what we could do with this. I like the actors involved for the most part. So there was a glimmer of hope, and there's nothing worse than having your hope smashed. So I will definitely go that Pixels was better.
Pixels currently at 18%, so double the 9%.
And I know what you think about Pixels, so I know where your vote is.
Yeah, I will say Pixels is worse, though they're not by a ton more. Super Mario Brothers, the movie with Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo.
I haven't watched that movie since it first came out in theaters, and I was 9 years old or 10 years old. So even then, I knew it wasn't a good movie. So I can't weigh in to see it as an adult because I would never watch it again.
I'd say better because I think there's some camp factor where you can be like, oh, that was a stupid movie.
Well, in John Leguizamo, even in Spawn, he was great. So yeah. John Leguizamo is always great. So
and in the same breath, Howard the Duck.
I've never seen it actually.
Whoa!
I know I've seen the Duck titties, but I've never actually seen Howard the Duck.
Yeah, I would say Howard the Duck is better. Again, for the same kind of camp factor. Dragon Ball Evolution. This is the only one of these I have not seen.
I think I was drunk when I watched it once. I will plead the fifth because I don't remember that one.
Okay. After Earth with Will Smith and his son.
Oh, that was horrible. See, here's the thing: is I have to go better because I've only given them 2 movies a 0. So even though it's a horrible movie, I don't know. I have to say better.
I say After Earth is not as good as Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four is better.
And this isn't a recommendation for After Earth. It's garbage.
No, absolutely not. That's a terrible movie. Batman and Robin. Nipples on the Batsuit.
It's campy, stupid fun. It's a horrible movie, which I think I watch once every 5 years to remind me why Jerry Bruckheimer should never have the franchise back. But it's better.
I will agree it's better, which is not to say that that's a good movie. But,
no, but it's a joy in comparison to this piece of crap.
Yeah, there's things I can enjoy there. So, Fantastic Four from 2005, and let's just throw in the sequel with the Cloud Galactus.
Yeah, so
Better or worse?
Better, and I explained why my written review was the Fantastic Four movies, while not good by any way, shape, or form, they at least understood the characters to the point that they got the sense of family, they got the camaraderie, they got the humor. When Sue Storm is there and she's complaining to, back when Chris Evans was, she was Jessica Alba was Sue Storm and Chris Evans was the Human Torch. He'd do something stupid or knuckleheaded, and she just had that exasperated, like, oh God, brother, what's wrong with you? There was that understanding that you get with the family, and that, again, that's one of my things why I hated this one so much, was they didn't understand it. By all means, go and redo the characters' origins. That's fine. Do your own take. Have them go to a different universe and whatever else, blah, blah, blah. But you've got to at least keep the same sense of family that's been there since the beginning, because that's a very defining trait. Everyone was complaining about the fact that Human Torch was black. Guess what? It made sense because his dad was black and Sue Storm was adopted. If you're still complaining about that, get over yourself. It's the least, even if you have a problem with it, which you shouldn't, and if you do, you're stupid, it's the least thing in this movie to even worry about because it made sense.
Amen. And it took all of 2 seconds to explain that. So
yeah, exactly. So, if you're so upset about that, screw you. But, it misunderstood what the Fantastic Four was about. So
yeah, in that I agree. The Tim Story Fantastic Four movies, they got the interplay between Johnny and the Thing. There was none of that here. I wanted to see them fighting like brothers, like the older brother and the kid brother.
Yeah, because they knew each other for all of 2 minutes.
Yeah, so it didn't make any sense there. Doom didn't make sense. Reed didn't make sense. Sue didn't make sense. The entire plot didn't make sense. Tim Blake Nelson didn't make sense. But mostly I was just bored by all of this.
Yeah, so, again, trying to stay objective in a subjective review, whatever, but it's bad. Don't go see it. If you're that tempted, you have to, like we said earlier, buy a ticket for another movie, sneak in. Again, it's just, I had at least some glimmer of hope for this, and they just stomped on it and threw out the window. So, like I mentioned before, 0 out of 10. I've only ever given one of the movie that score, so I hand them out even more rarely than 10s, because a movie has to be really, really, really bad to not even have one redeeming quality about it.
Yeah, and I'm at 3 out of 10 because I was more bored than upset by it. But it's not good, and they should not allow these same people to play in this sandbox.
Yeah, Marvel, take it back and do like Netflix. Do a Netflix series, because obviously your dance card's full with movies for the next 25,000 years. I would love to see maybe like an Arrested Development type single camera comedy drama with the Fantastic Four. That'd be fun.
This is my idea. Period piece.
Oh yeah, 70s period piece.
The Fantastic Four always worked so much better in the 60s.
Or
it
60s,
was
yeah.
Silly, it was silly, it was campy, and like you read the Fantastic Four issue #1 and reads like, we gotta beat those Ruskies out into space. And it's like, it's so awful, but it was a product of the time, and you get some of that that modern design that Jack Kirby was so great at, the look of Galactus, and you go for that. That's the only place it really works. And then if you want to do a modern day thing, you pull an Austin Powers or a Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and you age them up 30 years, and they go into the future, and there you go. So you can have a flashback and a modern take. Yeah,
there's some cool ideas. I'm sure Marvel has stuff ready to go, because I'd be very surprised if, even though there is a sequel planned, considering this movie's only made $11 million in 2 days, I'd be very surprised to see if that ever happens. So, by all means, Fox, pull your heads out your butts, give the rights back to Marvel, or at least partner with them like Sony did, because you obviously don't know what you're doing. And if you make another movie, shame on you. There's no excuse for what you've done. And whether or not
you're out,
yeah,
you made 3 terrible Fantastic Four movies.
So, anyways, but that being said, we don't want to leave you guys on a sad note, because well, that's just horrible. So really quickly before we go, we do want to talk about something kind of fun. I'm a huge Mondo fan. If you aren't aware of what Mondo is, go to, I think it's Mondo Tees, Tees.com, or just Google it. It's a company in Austin that's known for making really awesome film prints, soundtracks. I've got a really cool vinyl pressing of the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack. My husband Eddie's got the Halloween one. Really, really cool. Makes lots of really great collector stuff. Even if you're just an investor, if you can possibly get your hands on the poster, because they go on sale at 9:45 a.m. and they sell out by 9:46. So you've got to be quick on the draw. They've done a lot of Steelbook Blu-rays for Canada, and they've done a couple for their website. They actually have some available through Target now. They're only available on Target's website, so you have to go there and actually place the order and then wait for them to ship it to you. But he's done 3 so far. He did Flash Gordon, he did The Thing, and Shaun of the Dead. And it's the movie. There's no extra special features that make him different than what you probably already own. But the artwork is really, really cool. He throws a bunch of cool stuff on there. Maybe we'll post a picture on the website if we can get that working. But if you're a collector and you love those movies, and if you know Mondo, get it while it's there, because they go out of print pretty fast. But this is the first time you actually can go to any kind of website and, aside from Mondo Tees, and order a movie.
And in this day and age of where it's almost easier to download a movie through Amazon than to actually pick up a physical DVD, here is a reason to actually own the physical Blu-ray copy of it, because these are beautiful works of art. My recommendation is anyone who is in the Austin area or who wants a visit to or an excuse to visit, come on down October 3rd through 4th for Mondo Con. It is a 2-day celebration of all things Mondo, panels, art, posters. Tickets are still available, and if you're going to be here, let me know, and we'll go to the Draft House and see a movie, or head to the Highball and do some karaoke.
All right, well, that's what we have for you this week. Next week, we got some fun ones. We've got the Guy Ritchie take on the spy film, another spy film, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and then the kind of docudrama Straight Outta Compton, which kind of chronicles the rise of NWA, which 2 movies that are completely different from each other, but both are getting pretty early good hype. So I know we're all really excited to see them.
I have been looking forward to Straight Outta Compton, like, ever since Mad Max. If you would ask me, like, what's the movie you're most excited for the rest of the summer, I'd been like, Straight Outta Compton.
Yep.
I'm excited for that.
Really. And unfortunately, this is the first time in about 6 months that I actually have to work late, so I will miss that screening, but you can guarantee I will do whatever I can to sneak in, or actually buy a ticket and go see it. So that's next week. One last thing, I do want to wish a really happy birthday to my good friend Brooks Bird. He's one of our fellow film critics up here in Utah. He's turning 35 today, so he's officially older than I am. So if you want to check him out, he goes by the Real REEL Cinenerd on Facebook and also on Blogspot. So check him out. He's awesome, and he's done a lot to help us get into a lot of screenings and see stuff. So go check him out.
Happy birthday, Brooks. I'm 2 years older than you, so...
All right. You guys have a good week. Andy, go ahead and take us out.
It's clobbering time?
Hail Satan and have a lovely afternoon.